What is up, guys? DT Ninja here to give you guys my RuroKen Hokkaido Arc Chapter 39 review. Okay, guys, it has been a while since the last review, and I've had a lot of things going on, so I didn't have time to do this video, but here it is, better late than never, right? This chapter, the Aburo no Koji incident and Hajime Saito. This Aburo no Koji incident is the historical incident with the Shinsengumi facing off against the Goryo Eiji. It's part 2, so we finally get to see the battle between Hattori, Saito, and Nagakura. And of course, there's a strategic plan, and they set a trap for Hattori, and Harada comes in at the end. I mean, he jumps on top of his back out of nowhere and slams that spear into his back, and they all simultaneously attack all at once, and of course we get the death of Hattori. That was really crazy, but also we got to see like the honorable side of him. You know, there's more to him than just, you know, this monstrous man that can fight off pretty much anyone, but he's really honorable. So we'll get to that in the actual review, but yeah, that was great. And then you got the other side. We learn who the mysterious man that was meeting Nagakura. It's Kano Washio. Washio Kano, he was a former Shinsengumi member and Goryo Eiji member. So we get to learn that he's actually a friend and comrade of Judo Abe. So that was neat. That was interesting. And then we even get to meet another friend of Nagakura's at the brothel, the whorehouse, the place where all the geisha are. So that was really neat. And then, of course, the end where Abe is being tailed by Mishima, and he turns around and he's like, who put you up to this? Saito, you still underestimate the Goryo Eiji. So that was really an interesting chapter. But yeah, I have some notable things from this chapter that I think you might find interesting. There will be a discussion in a week or so. And also, I've been working on Chapter 40. So Chapter 40 has already dropped. I'm working on it as we speak. So at the very end, I will give you a couple spoilers. Okay, let's get to it. The first thing that I noticed about this chapter, Honorable Warrior Hattori. Okay, we all know this. We saw the sacrifice that he's making in part 1. You know, he's fighting off all the Shinsengumi like crazy. Well, here he challenges Saito and Nagakura to a fight, right? But here's the thing, Abe is there, right? Abe is really excited to get in the fight, and Hattori's like, stop. I'm taking him on. You know, this is my fight. You need to live on in the new era. Now, this makes it so he knows he's going to die. He ain't going to walk away from this. So that was a really, one of those scenes where it's like, wow, he knows he's going to die, and he's allowing his comrades to live on. So that was a really neat scene. And it also showed Abe's development, how much Hattori meant to him, because after this he becomes bitter and spiteful, and just this grudge that's been ongoing all these years against the Shinsengumi. So it all makes sense now. Okay, the next one, personal duel and setting a trap. Okay, the personal duel has to be between Saito and Hattori. Now, Hattori was the kendo master at the dojo, at the original dojo, the Shiekan. The Shiekan is the original dojo which Commander Kondo Asami set up. So he was the main, kendo master there, and he was training all these, Shinsengumi members, including Saito, including Nagakura. So he's kind of their teacher. So it's very interesting that we get this kind of personal duel between them. They want to test each other's strength, but then you got Nagakura on the other side. And he's got more of a strategic plan, because he's got his sword, the sword, because Hattori has 2 swords. So when he strikes with his sword and they clash, he literally makes him immobile, and we get that Sanrin Dosai technique that Nagakura always pulls out. He used it against Sojiro, I believe in chapter 11. So we got that immobility where he can't move. And then Hattori actually breaks through. He breaks that technique. So it's very interesting, but it was all a trap. It was all a trap. So you get these two different sides of the characters, and one of them seems to be, out just to test their strength. The other one is strategic and wanting to fight, not wanting to fight, but to fight as a group. So obviously, Saito wants to fight him one-on-one, and Nagakura is saying, let's fight together, and he's got a plan with Harada, one of his best friends. Okay, the next one, longtime comrades. Okay, Abe and Washio Kano, they are longtime comrades, and you will see them in the scan where Hattori his back is turned, and you see his samurai armor, and he's like, live on in the new era. He's being the sacrifice to them. You see Abe rushing off to the battlefield, ready to fight, and he's like, stand down. You see that Kano is right behind him. You'll see it. You can see the face. It's the same as the one. It looks younger, obviously, but they're there together. So he is in that flashback. So I found that interesting. It does make sense, and it all connects. But anyways, that is one thing. So Abura no Koji is the one thing. The next one is the Seki Hotai, and he mentions this in the chapter. Washio Kano mentions that they were in the Seki Hotai. They had to, survive throughout the whole, the war. They had to come up with something, because once the Goryo Eiji kind of fell, they had to fend for themselves. They had to do something. They had to get in a group, and they chose the Seki Hotai, which is that false army, right? So they were in the Ishin Shishi for a while. And then now they're government officials. So they've been together for a very long time. They were both in the Shinsengumi. They were both in the Abura no Koji incident, in the Goryo Eiji together. They were in the Seki Hotai, and now they're government officials. So they've always been in the same kind of group category. So it's very interesting to me that that's the case. And we see how much Kano cares for Abe, because he's begging Nagakura, please take care of him. Even though I know he's a jerk, please take care of him. There's something that really snapped in Abe back then, and it broke him. It broke him. It changed him forever. It seems like it. And you see that spiteful bitterness towards the Shinsengumi ever since. So he's never been the same. So that's very interesting. Number 4, not a swordsman, a spearman. Okay, this is Harada. Okay, so Sanosuke Harada is the one that has kind of the killing blow, or the major blow, to Hattori, because at that time he thought it was 2-on-1, and out of nowhere, like a monkey on his back, he jumps on top of his back and literally puts the spear right in his back, right? So the Shinsengumi are known as swordsmen, but this guy has a spear. His main weapon is a spear. What I noticed about this is very interesting. He has 2 swords on his belt. So you'll see it as he's using the spear in that scan. You'll see the 2 swords. They're strapped to his, waist. And I got to thinking, maybe that's actually strategic too. Because if he's not a swordsman, he has 2 swords, you could confuse your opponent to think that you're going to use a sword, but actually he pulls out the spear, and that's going to give you a huge advantage. So I found that interesting. Maybe he does use a sword, but obviously having those on his belt besides the spear makes him unpredictable, right? Because you think he might be using a sword, but actually no. So anyways, I found that very interesting, and maybe that's why he is formidable. So yeah. Okay, the next thing, Saito's chilling doubts. We're talking about the chill he feels in the air while he's waiting in, outside, in Sapporo. He feels that cold air, and he's like, it's getting cold. And right before that, we got the dying words of Hattori, and he goes on to tell him that Aksokzan does not work in every situation. Were these people truly evil, Were the Gordio Agi evil? Were the expel the barbarians kind of theme of the Bakamatsu, was that evil? Were the people that you slayed with that sword, were they truly evil? So he's questioning everything that he's ever done using that justice. And it's very interesting because he's making him doubt himself. And you can see that kind of in the chapter. And yeah, it's very interesting. And even in the new chapter, chapter 40, we're going to see Hattori's kind of flashback where he finally, where he tells him, when we meet again in hell, I want your answer. So it's really affecting him, and I think that, that does bring some doubt into Saito's mind. So maybe that chilling feeling is something of doubt, not just like someone's watching me, which that could be too, because we see Kenshin in that scan, which obviously Kenshin's not there. That is in his head. So it's very interesting, but yeah, it's something, something to think about. Okay, the next one is leaving yourself wide open or vulnerable. Now, this goes back to Kenshin and Saito. So in chapter 13, we see Kenshin is talking to everyone, his family, the kids. Obviously, Sano's there, and he's telling them about what their plan is to fight the Kinkaku Heki. And who's outside watching his back? Like, he's just watching him from the ground. It's Saito. And ironically, he's sitting his back is towards the window, so his back is wide open, he's vulnerable, and Saito says, you left yourself wide open. In this chapter, chapter 39, we see Kenshin outside the window, we see Saito's back to the window, and you see the exact opposite of that scene. So we got two of the similar scenes, but this time it's the other way around. So last time Saito said he was vulnerable, he was wide open, why are you doing that? And now Saito is feeling the same feeling, and we see the same kind of scene. So it's very interesting. Not only that, if you look at the chapter name, not the chapter name, the chapter, the page number. The page number is number 16 in chapter 13 with Kenshin, his back towards the window. In this chapter, chapter 39, it's page 16. I know that's pretty crazy, right? But that can't be a coincidence. That has to be something that he's doing there. Very similar. I think that made a reference to it because same page, same kind of scene, just flipped. So, and I think that's why Kenshin is shown there, because he honestly feels that vulnerability. So, and maybe he does feel like he's being watched, or that doubt is starting to creep in, and that's why he's getting those chills down his spine. So, very interesting stuff. Okay, number 7. Many faces of Nagakura. Okay, in this chapter, Nagakura in the past, obviously we got the Aburo no Koji. He's determined, he's ready to fight, he's got all of these emotions, but in the actual, after the actual fight, in present day Meiji era, we see a lot of different faces of Nagakura. We see kind of the determination to never let, and confidence, never to let Abe see the Shinsengumi lose. He says that, right? And then we see kind of the excited and happy Nagakura when he sees his close, one of his old friends, Goro Maeno. He's very excited, right? And then you see kind of the annoyed look on his face when he notices that, when he realizes that Washio Kano and he's like, "You were one of the assailants that shot at Commander Kondo," and he gets that not only the annoyance, he gets that kind of anger, kind of hidden anger coming out at that moment. And he's like, if you meet Saito, he's gonna kill you. So it was a pretty funny moment, but you get these different faces of Nagakura, and it's very interesting. You get that impressed look because Maeno, he learns that he's rich, he's very famous, he owns a whole, like he's really, popular in Susukino. So it's very interesting. He's very understanding. He has respect towards his friend. Yeah, there's a lot of different faces. You see a sad and guilty face as well towards the end. I'm talking about the one where Maeno is like, if you let me know during the day when you want to come here, I'll set everything up so you can meet with the girls, the geisha, right? And after that, he's like, okay. But look at his eye. His eye tells a different story, a sad story. And that is because there's something behind it. There's something behind it. And we're going to get to that next. Okay, the next one, Nagakura and the geisha. Okay, so back in 1867, around the time of this Aburonakoji incident, Nagakura married a geisha. Okay, he married a geisha named Kotsune. That is her name in Kyoto as a geisha, okay? Now, he had a daughter named Iso, okay? But while he was doing the Aburonakoji incident, while he was, in his Shinsengumi duties and everything, she died, okay? She died. He lost his wife in this situation. So, now going back to the chapter, we see the whole establishment, the geishas and, the brothel, kind of the Edo, kind of red light district kind of feeling to it. You see Nagakura get that really excited face when he talks about the girls, but then when he refuses, you get that feeling there's a sad story behind it, and that's the reason, because he was married to a geisha, so he doesn't really want to stay there and have that, sad but guilty kind of feeling. Now, he does feel guilty because he probably wanted to protect her. Something happened to her and she died. And ironically, he meets his daughter later on in life, like years and years later, and she is also a geisha. So they do reunite his daughter and, the one that he had with the geisha. So that is kind of interesting, but it is a sad story that his original wife, the geisha, died, and that's the reason why you see that look on his face. Very interesting stuff. And that is the true Nagakura, by the way. So I like how you got like the historical aspect, but also his actual, look in the chapter actually is the reason behind that. So we don't know that, right? But we know if you look in the history books, right? So very interesting stuff. Okay. So we obviously know there's a story behind it. Kind of like Kano had that sad story about, the Sekihotai and how, everything, he's kind of lost his friend Abe, he's spiteful. So it's kind of like that. So let's get to the next one. Maeno and the Asano clan. Okay, so Goto Maeno is he's a former Shinsengumi member. He was also a part of something in Edo because he was with Nagakura in something together, and they were both in Edo. So they've been in more than just the Shinsengumi, because in the Shinsengumi they really weren't together. They were different. He was a corporal. That's his rank, and that was Abe's rank as well, so it's not very high. But when he was in Edo, apparently they were comrades, they were soldiers together. Obviously, they were working together. So obviously they've had some sort of, kind of camaraderie in the past. So I would love to know more about that, what it actually was in Edo. But yeah, it's very interesting. The Asano clan. Okay, so if you look at Maeno when he's first introduced, you'll see he's wearing a kimono, right? You'll see there's a crest on his kimono. Now I was like, whoa, okay, that looks really fancy. So I looked it up. The crest is the Asano clan. Now the Asano clan comes from Hideyoshi. Yeah, we're talking about Toyotomi. He married someone called Asano, and that's where the clan comes from. So the samurai roots are from Hideyoshi and Asano. So it has, it's a samurai family clan name. But after the Meiji Restoration, this is the mark of new nobility. So daimyo originally had this crest because they're kind of higher up. So this tells me that Maeno is a big, deal. He's very famous, and that crest tells us he's nobility. So I found that very interesting, but it does have the roots back to Hideyoshi. So that's very interesting. So let's get to the next one, pain of loss. And we're going to, obviously, the geisha that I was talking about. Nagakura, obviously, the pain of loss. We see it in his eyes towards the end of the chapter. But not only that, if you look at the couple pages before that, you'll see that when Washio Kano states that my friend, he's not the same anymore. He's changed. He's very different now. And then he talks about, you see the sad look in his eyes. It's almost the same as Nagakura, as, he lost his wife. But it's the same thing. He's lost a friend. He's not the same anymore. And he hasn't been the same since. So I found that interesting. And of course, it goes back to Abe losing Hattori, a very respectful, someone he respected and, regarded very highly. And that pain of loss really affected him. And you see that throughout this arc. We see how spiteful and, bitter he has become. Which leads us to the next one, spiteful Abe and Saito's justice. Okay, so spiteful Abe. Obviously, it goes back to the whole thing with the Shinsengumi, but it even goes deeper than that, because remember, Saito was infiltrating the Goryo Eiji, so he was part of the Goryo Eiji at one point, and Abe did not trust that guy at all. So this goes before he even had the whole Shinsengumi incident at Aberono-Koji. So, anyways, after Hattori died, there was something changed in Abe, and we see it. We see it towards the end. Mishima is tailing him, and you see him look back, and he's like, you really do underestimate the Goryo Eiji. You put us below the Shinsengumi, but we'll show you just how powerful, just how formidable we really are. So you do see that ongoing grudge between the two, Shinsengumi and Goryo Eiji, which is very interesting. But I get the feeling that Kano is telling us that through that story of the Seki Hotai, through that story of, at the mansion, trying to find work, and all of this, there's something deep inside of Abe that is not surfaced, okay? There's something there. He's not as bad as we're seeing him. He's not a bad guy. He's just spiteful, he's bitter, but I don't feel he's bad. And we do meet his family in the latest chapter, so we will get a little bit more. But I do feel like we're going to get, he's going to be a key to this arc. So that's my personal feeling. Now going to Saito's justice. Now remember, Akusok-san, he always states this as he's fighting, as determination, as something that to live by, right? But if Hattori was right, if Saito is saying this just so that, it makes him feel like he's superior or even better at the situation can be resolved simply by saying this, then this is going to give him doubt. This is going to cause him to have this, this guilt inside, because he's questioning himself. He's never had these kind of doubts before, and they're starting to creep in. So it's very interesting that we got both of these characters, Abe and Saito, but they're both kind of stuck in the past, okay? Nagakura lives by, he is a swordsman, but he also has moved on. Saito, on the other hand, he really lives by the sword and dies by the sword. He still believes in Akuzan more than anything. And Abe believes that he must have his revenge at any cost, and the past has not left either of them. So it's very interesting that they kind of have this similar feel to them, but they're also on the opposite sides. So that's why I feel Abe might have a key role in this, and that they might have some resolution where Abe is not going to end up, seeing the Shinsengumi lose. He's going to play a critical role. That's my personal feeling. But yeah, what do you guys think about it? Very interesting stuff. So there will be a discussion like in a week or so. Now, on to the final part, which is spoilers. Okay, guys, so this chapter opens up and we get Hyobe the Skull, and he is attacking, some officials. So then we get the old woman of the Yaminobu. She comes in with this kind of bag, and it's bleeding. It has blood all over it, and she drops it, and we think it's Yamagata Aratomo Yamagata. I mean, this is the Lord of the Meiji Imperial Army. It's a huge thing. But no, it's a body double. And Hyobe looks at it, and he's like, this guy lived a boring life. There's no way this is the Ishin Shishi, Meiji Lord. There's no way. So it's interesting, we get a little insight of his powers a little bit, what he can see with those eyes. And then, of course, we get the meeting between Mishima and Abe's wife and son. So we learn more about Abe, and he's not such a bad guy. I really don't feel he's a bad guy. But you get some funny moments between the family. And then towards the end, you got, Mishima kind of giving back the kind of his intel of everything. So, but anyways, that's pretty much how it goes. Towards the very end, we get Hyobe, and he attacks and raids the government office, which is huge. Usually he, fights on the street, but this time he raids the actual office of the government. So it's a pretty big thing. So anyways, guys, I hope you guys enjoyed, and yeah, I will see you guys in the next one for my discussion.